Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying the rainy weather and eagerly looking forward to the holidays. Just for the record, I am not that big of a fan of daylight savings time, and I don't like the fact that it gets dark so early. And believe it or not, even though I am during this time of daylight savings time, I'm granted one more hour of sleep, at least on Sunday, it's still, in a sense, messed up my sleeping schedule. So I don't know about the rest of you, but maybe I think I'm hoping I look forward to the day that maybe we get rid of daylight savings time. But I don't know. Maybe in a Buddhist sense, um, it's good because then it kind of teaches us about the meaning of impermanence, especially when it comes to sleep schedules and the daylight outside. Today, we are observing our annual Eitaikyo service. Translated, Eitaikyo means perpetual chanting of the sutras. The purpose of this service is to honor the many past members of the temple all the way back to its founding. We take this time to reflect on all of the past members who have donated and have come together countless times to assist with services, events, and with the upkeep of the wonderful space that we all share today, which is the temple. For this service in particular, I enjoy chanting one of the longer chants, which is Amirakyo. Since we are on Zoom, I decided I would only chant the first part of Amirakyo, but when we are able to come back in person to the temple, I look forward to being able to chant the whole thing. As you all know, chanting sutras, or portion of sutras, is very important in our school of Jodo Shinshu. I realize that sometimes sutras or versions of them can be a little bit long, and it might tire some people to the point where they may think inside their head, can't we just skip to the Dharma talk? However, I hope that this Dharma talk today will renew all of our appreciation for the act of reciting sutras, as well as realizing that our ancestors and long past members also chanted these sutras. In other Buddhist traditions, it is often believed that constantly, or at least very regularly, chanting the Buddhist sutras will build up our karmic merit, not just for ourselves, but for our past ancestors and future generations. For many, chanting sutras is seen as a virtuous act that can grant wonderful benefits in this lifetime, as well as benefits for your family and your ancestors. Jodo Shinshu is a little bit different. In our school, we revere the three Pure Land Sutras, and we chant them not to gain karmic merit, not to gain good fortune in our present lives, but to recognize the wondrous nature of the Dharma and the teachings that were given to us by Shakyamuni Buddha. I also like to think that this act of chanting the sutras is a way for us to connect with our past ancestors who may have taken part in chanting the same sutras. If we look at historical pictures of services and just seeing how services are still being conducted today, we can be sure that our ancestors and past members of the temple engaged in similar rituals and chants during their time. Seeing us today, it makes my heart very warm to see the children and adults alike engaging in services and rituals, not that different from the time of our great-grandparents. In other words, it is a traditional part of our school. So I'm not certain if many of you know this about me, but I am a large lover of musical theater. In fact, growing up, I attended a special school that taught the fine arts, and my focus was acting and musical theater. While I was never part of this particular production growing up, my parents and I often watched and sang along to the musical called Fiddler on the Roof. How many of you have seen this production before? I'm certain I will hear about it during the coffee hour. But for me, this has some of the most beautiful music attached to it, and it has a great story about a poor Jewish family struggling to get by in pre-communist Russia The opening song of this musical is called Tradition. Have you heard this song before? It is one of my favorite songs in many musicals. You know that song that goes, Tradition, Tradition. In part of this song, one of the traditions that is shown is the reading and the reciting of the Torah. Every time I watch this part of the song where the Jewish men are inside of the temple reading the texts and reciting them, I can't help but think that this is largely similar to our tradition of reciting sutras. But similar to my explanation before, this act is done because it is part of a deep and long-lasting tradition. When a person comes to a Jodo Shinchu temple in Japan or other countries, one of the things that they will see and that we all do is recite sutras. We dedicate a portion of our service to reciting the sacred words by the Buddha because when all is said and done, we rely on the teachings of the Buddha to guide us in this life. As a young child, teenager, young adult, and adult, I had the privilege of growing up with the temple. The temple was part of my life. Regularly, I would attend services at the Sacramento Betsuin, and largely one of the reasons why this temple was so important to me was because my grandparents were very much of an example to follow in terms of the importance of the temple. My grandfather, pictured here, was Kinji Hiramoto, and my grandmother was Teri Hiramoto. They were prominent members of the Buddhist Church of Lodi, which is pictured on our left. I would often have wonderful memories of going to Lodi as a child for the Obon celebrations and JACL spaghetti dinners. However, as I began to grow up, I started to become more and more aware of the funerals and memorial services that I would be attending. During those times, I would very much recall my grandparents as well as the other senior members of the congregation chanting the sutras and reading from the service book. This image is very heavy in my mind. When I have spoken with many Sansei members, they too recall the time that their grandparents would often go to the temple services and chant from the sutra books along with the minister. And today, our temple services still observe the ritual of chanting from sacred texts of our school. I am certain that this ritual will not leave our school of Buddhism, as chanting from the sutras and gathas is a key part to our tradition. But then that begs the question, if we don't get any immediate benefits from constantly chanting the sutras, why do we do it? It might seem somewhat counterintuitive to chant something that won't benefit us in a way that we can get rewarded, or that can be tangible for us to touch. Chanting the sutras will not guarantee that you will win the lottery. It will not mean that you will get the promotion that you have been campaigning for, nor will chanting the sutras ensure that your great-great-grandparents will be reborn in a new life as rich people. For us, as Jodo Shinchu Buddhists, we respect and recite these sacred words because of how Buddhism has helped us throughout our lives. The more we engage with each other and the Dharma, the better lives we can live now. So I am glad that a service that is specifically named for chanting sutras, because while I am a supporter of tradition and the reading of sutras, I think we as a congregation and followers of the Buddha Dharma should actively and often discuss the significance of these teachings and texts and how they can speak to us. Otherwise, the tradition will become an empty one, and then it will lose its significance as time goes on. I sincerely believe that our ancestors who are long past now also felt this way and gave us an example to follow in our present lives today. When the next generation comes around, and many of those young people are already amongst us, like the Gosei, and I'm not sure, there might be some Rokusei as well. I hope that we can continue to lead by example the importance of ritual and the importance of chanting the sutras, and encourage the next generation to engage with the texts as we all have. After today's message, we can all renew our appreciation, not just for our ancestors and the long past members of the temple, but also the texts and sutras that brought them all together and created a vibrant and friendly community that is the Tacoma Buddhist Temple today. I would like to thank you all for joining me today on this rainy Sunday morning via Zoom. In closing, will you please join me in Gassho? Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats.